Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be going through a unit that I've been asked a lot about. He used to be really strong way back when in the pre-launch days. He got a nerf and I hadn't seen too much about him, and because everyone had been asking me about him, like what's his damage like, I thought I'd finally get around to 5-starring one, skilling him up and testing his damage as best I can. We're going to go through his skills, his stats, his glyphs. Don't panic when you look at the glyphs the way they are. I'll explain why they are what they are when we get there, but we'll do some proper testing with him. We'll test him in arena, maybe the strength dungeon, because that's somewhere else I've been considering him in, and talk about his viability in raids, specifically the first wave of the raids. Just see, once we see his damage numbers, see if he would be viable as the AoE sort of cleave option in the raid. On the topic of raids, you might be wondering why I haven't got any raid content out. I had a playthrough, we've cleared the raid the first time, and I was going to actually start doing guides for each wave of the raid and stuff like that, but we don't have enough points to start a new one. So once we get the points and we start a new one, I will start getting more raid content out there. But first of all, we're going to look at his skills, and basically this third skill is what we're really looking at, and it's attacks all enemies ignoring their defense, and that's the big thing we're looking at. It also has a really nice added effect, which is the drains their HP, and the drain is 100% of his attack and the enemy's attack. So this drain can be very useful in higher floors on TOT and stuff like that, where the enemies have more higher attack and it is draining a lot more. To a lesser extent in arena and stuff like that, but the thing with the drain in arena is you really want to be just killing things with the attack, not relying on the drain. So the main part for arena when we're testing is going to be that just the flat damage he can deal. The second skill, attacks an enemy, taunts them for 2 turns and steals 45% of their turn bar. Not too bad, not game breaking. Like I said, the main thing we're looking at is that third skill. And then evolution, I got attacks and heals myself for 10%. The other option is gives himself a counter attack, which is also really nice. They're both not bad evolve skills, but for the arena nuking that we're really looking at, neither of them really matter that much. Then when we move on to his stats are really disappointing. Due to the juggernauts being tanks, they get the low attack, low crit, all that sort of thing, low speed. So when we look at his actual base stats, we'll start with his speed. His speed is 67, which is really low. So already to get him tuned in with the rest of your team to not have enemies cut in between your attack bar booster and him is going to be hard to get him that higher speed. Next thing, which because he's a defender, he's got a base 15% crit rate, which attackers get around the 30% crit rate, so he's going to be even harder to get to make those crits. He evolves into resistance, so he's got 55 base resistance, which doesn't matter at all, which is what we're trying to do him. Ideally you would have got that crit damage evolve, but once again, because he's a tank, he's getting that resistance evolve. And then probably the most disappointing thing when we look at him is his base attack. It's only 1088, which is well below the required amount to get to profit from percentage glyphs, so he will want flat attack. So just the fact that you want to use him as an attacker, but he's got the real bad attacker stats, makes him incredibly hard to glyph. When we look at his tank stats are good. So he's got a base 7148 HP and 658 defense. So his defenses are good. The problem is that we want to use him for damage, and his, like I said, those damage stats aren't quite there. So when we go into glyphing, I've got mine on the lifesteal. You probably don't need it at all for him. The lifesteal was just there when I was thinking about using him in the strength dungeon. But yeah, because he does have that drain HP attached to it, it's not as important. Ideally, you'd probably have like a Frenzy Destroy or something like that. And I'll show you the glyphs that I've got on him and why I've got them, because it may look confusing with this +7 glyph. So normally, when you look at his speed right now, it's at 91. Normally I'd have a speed glyph on him, but because I didn't have the crystals when I was doing this to power him up, I've just done a few runs before and got 1,000,000 crystals. But yeah, I only had these 3 attack glyphs at 13, which gives 528. And if we just look here quickly, a maxed out flat attack is 630. So basically I've got 3 of those missing 100 attack. So I put this one on it, which has 350. So it puts him a bit higher. So that was my idea. So when we test him, I would normally have a speed glyph here and those other glyphs maxed, but because I don't, we'll just put an extra booster in the team to get his turn, and then we'll see the sort of comparable damage he would be doing. So I've just dropped that speed, put the attack in there just to get his attack where it would be if those glyphs were maxed. So yeah, normally I'd be looking at speed attack, because just that low base speed, you need some speed to be able to move with your teammates. So yeah, then you go, so speed attack would be the normal idea, then crit rate. This guy's got double crit rate. It's really hard just because he's got such low base crit rate. I had trouble getting him up high, but all these glyphs have a crit damage substat and he's on the destroy, so it sort of makes up for the fact that I'm not using a crit damage glyph. But yeah, so it would be ideally crit rate, crit damage, or double crit rate. Just depends what kind of quality glyphs. I mean, my glyphs aren't rubbish, so it is just really hard to glyph him. And then I've got double flat attack here. But yeah, when you look at his crit damage is still plus 84, which is very reasonable. Crit rate 86, still not maxed out with those 2 level 16 crit rate glyphs and crit rate substats on most of the glyphs. So just really hard to glyph. That's the main thing that comes across in him. But I think we'll jump into the arena, which is where everyone wants to know, is he going to just beat people? And what I'll do is I'll set my defense to have, we'll do a fire, a wind. So fire he's weak against, wind he's strong against, and we'll do a water for the neutral. And we'll just see, because it's an ignored defense, these numbers are going to be what he does against anything, because doesn't care about defense. So we'll just basically find out against each elemental advantage, either advantage, disadvantage, or neutral, what the damage is going to be, and that's what that damage is going to take anywhere. So we'll test it, and this is the team I'm going to use. Just the Earth Zealot to get the standard attack buff and crit damage buff. The Crusader's in there just because I've got him so slow at the moment, just to get that extra turn bar boost, and then we'll see what damage he does. So we'll go start and see what numbers we can actually get. Like you really hope for maybe it's a really hard one to guess. We'll just see what we get and then discuss it. Okay, here we go. Let's put it down to 1 times speed and see what we do. So the left is going to be the lowest number, the middle is going to be the highest number, and the right's going to be the in-between. So let's have a look. 7, 13, and 10. Okay, so against when he's strong, when he's got elemental advantage, it was 13, neutral 10, and weak 7. So I'm tipping in a normal team that you'd use this guy in, you'd be looking at doing you'd be doing 2 of him. So like your double booster, like the team I thought of using him in would be something like the Earth Zealot or the Earth Fox, together with the Water Fox, because it has that crit rate buff and the attack bar boost, so it reduces that stat requirement. So my thought was those 2, then 2 of these guy. But if you have anything that's half tanky and a fire unit, like the Mystics, or that's all that comes to mind at the top of the head, or the Druid or anything like that, you're really not going to get through them with only 14k damage. That's the only hard thing. So I feel like with that damage for arena, he's not overly viable. Like I said, my glyphs aren't the best. You could get better glyphs, which if you got up to about 10k, maybe, it would be alright. The good thing is that he has elemental advantage over the most annoying unit on arena defense at the moment, which is the Wind Mystic. And for me at the moment, I find so many Wind Mystics and they're all on immunity. And the only reviver I can think of is the Fire Holy Sister, the only fire reviver. So you don't see many of them. So at least the big thing for this guy would be to get rid of the offensive threats, being the attackers, which he should normally get through with 2 of this guy, and then the revivers, which are mainly the ones you see are the wind mystic, like I said, and the water shaman. So he could work all right, but you would need two of him, or even maybe him with a fire succubus. I'm not sure, but like I said, it's just really hard to glyph him to get him that speed that he needs. So you would need that double booster. And then obviously if the enemy is slower, then you can't fall back on that the fire monk like I do so often, because then you'd have to have the fire monk followed by double booster then him, just because his speed is so slow. So if you do outspeed, I feel like he could be alright, but I wouldn't go crazy building two of him just for arena yet. We'll jump quickly into the strength dungeon, because I just want to see, because I'm not sure on the HP of the waves. So if I just do something like get rid of that, and we'll just throw him in, just to see what damage he does on the wave. So I'll just manual it, get my attack buff, and then just see if he can wipe a wave. I feel like he's going to be useful, because I'm looking for that sort of 3-star team for it. It doesn't matter what I use with him. Let's just buff, and let's just see if he can wipe a wave. If he can wipe a wave, I feel like he's going to be viable. Okay, so with attack buff and crit damage buff, he's only getting them to half HP. That's not good. I don't think that'll be good enough. I think my dragon just clears them with his AoE without armor break. So that's disappointing. I'm just going to leave that battle. Okay, so I don't think he's going to be viable for strength too much. Like I said, you do get better glyphs, but still he's only doing half, so you need to double that damage. It is really that low base attack that really costs him. His AoE multiplier is only 0.5 at base. It skills up to 0.75, but that ignore defense, you think it should count for a little bit more, but yeah, that low attack really hurts him. And looking at that as a neutral element, he's doing 10k. I don't think that is going to be too viable in the raid either. I was thinking the first wave to just with cooldown resetters and just keep using that AoE, but I just think bomb's going to be better for that. So all around a little bit disappointing. I think he could be viable double Ravager in arena. Like I said, he's got that advantage over the Wind Mystics, which are running rampant at the moment in the higher leagues, but besides that, it is a really tough one to balance for my mind, the ignore defense mechanic, especially when it's on an AoE. We saw it early on where before the global launch, he would just one-shot entire teams without even an attack buff. So this is, I guess him being a bit weaker is better than him being as crazy as he was, but it's a hard one to balance, because even if you ask me what the ideal number for him to be hitting with elements is, like I couldn't tell you, like, because if he got too much higher, you'd say that's crazy because two of him will just wipe any team. But at this, maybe it is in a good balance point, because he does do that 13k damage with advantage, 10k without advantage. Like I said, the glyphs aren't perfect. But yeah, just that slow speed as well. So if you had a bit better glyphs, maybe this is where the dark glyph thing could come in. Once you start like down the track getting some more dark glyphs, and there is that possibility to get get that crit rate up a bit easier and stuff like that, he could become more viable. But yeah, just for me right now, unless you have absolutely godly glyphs to throw on two of them, I wouldn't really bother. And then if you had those godly glyphs, they might go better on something else anyway. So I'm a bit up in the air about him, whether he is good or not. For dungeons, I just don't think the damage is there. But for arena, I think he could possibly be there. But sorry for no definitive answer on him. But that's the Rocky Ravager. A lot of people have asked about him, so that's the sort of numbers you can get from him. You could probably get up to maybe the 10k on negative elemental, but that would be really godly glyphs. But thanks for watching, guys. Sorry I couldn't be more definitive, but I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.